What happens when one of the most powerful judges in America, a sitting Supreme Court justice, takes aim at a bold freshman congresswoman, only to be met with a comeback so sharp, so unexpected, that it flips the entire conversation upside down? That's exactly what happened when Justice Amy Coney Barrett leveled into Representative Jasmine Crockett, and Crockett delivered a reply so stunning it left the room in silence. Here's something to think about. Supreme Court justices aren't just powerful, they're virtually untouchable. They serve for life. Their decisions shape the laws and freedoms of more than 330 million Americans. For decades, they've been the final word on everything from voting rights to healthcare to personal freedoms. And when they speak, people usually listen. But this time was different. Because when Justice Barrett directed a sharp attack at Crockett, most people expected the Congresswoman to fold, fumble, or retreat. After all, who challenges one of the highest legal authorities in the land? Instead, Crockett met her with a response so cold, precise, and unapologetic that it caught everyone off guard. Now let's make this real. Picture yourself at work. You're in a meeting with senior management, the kind of people who sign paychecks and make career-altering decisions. Suddenly one of them criticizes you in front of everyone. What do? Do you shrink back, avoid eye contact and hope it blows over? Or do you stand tall, keep your cool, and respond in a way that not only protects your dignity, but also commands respect? That's the exact choice Crockett faced, except her meeting wasn't a boardroom. It was a stage with millions watching, and instead of a boss, it was a Supreme Court justice. Most of us can feel that heat. We know the sting of being challenged by someone in power, whether it is a teacher, a boss, or even a family elder. The pressure to stay quiet is overwhelming. And yet Crockett did. The opposite. This moment wasn't just about politics. It struck a deeper chord in the American psyche, the desire to stand strong when power seems overwhelming. When Crockett fired back with her shocking comeback, she wasn't just defending herself. She was embodying something bigger, the fight for respect, the refusal to bow down, and the courage to speak truth, even when authority looms large. That's why this exchange is making waves across the country. It wasn't just Crockett versus Barrett. It was the everyday American versus the towering weight of authority. And for once, the underdog didn't back down. And here's where it gets even more interesting. By the end of this breakdown, you won. To just know what Crockett said, you will understand why Justice Barrett's attack backfired. The psychology behind Crockett's delivery. The common mistakes people make when facing authority, and most importantly, how you can use Crockett's strategy to hold your own in high-pressure moments, whether at work, in school, or in your personal life. Because here's the truth. This wasn't just a political moment. It was a masterclass in power presence and comeback strategy. So stick with me, because the best part is still to come. When most Americans hear about an exchange between a Supreme Court justice and a member of Congress, it can feel distant, technical, and locked away in the halls of power. But the truth is, what happened between Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Representative Jasmine Crockett matters deeply for ordinary people. Why? Because this moment wasn't only about politics or procedure, it was about the balance of power. On one side, you had Barrett, one of 9 people whose decisions shape the freedoms and daily realities of 330 million Americans. On the other, you had Crockett, a young, outspoken congresswoman determined to challenge authority when she feels it is wrong. When Barrett went on the attack, it represented something millions of people feel every day, the crushing weight of authority challenging your voice. And when Crockett fired back with her shocking comeback, she showed that standing firm in conviction can actually turn the tables even against the most powerful. That's why this moment matters. It speaks to a timeless American struggle. How ordinary voices confront extraordinary power. Americans are exhausted by power plays and double standards. We see it at work, in politics, even in our schools and communities. Those with authority often feel untouchable, while the rest are expected to stay silent. But Crockett's comeback broke that script. It gave people something to point to and say, yes, that S, how you push back without losing composure. This is bigger than a headline. It's a moment of representation of someone showing that respect doesn't mean silence and confidence doesn't require a title. Now that we understand the significance, let's break down what this video will cover step by step. By the end, you'll not only know what happened, but you'll also walk away with strategies you can apply in your own life. Here's the roadmap. Problem identification. We'll start by exposing the first big mistake people make when faced with authority, the tendency to shrink back, stumble, or over-explain. We'll connect this to Crockett's situation and show how it plays out in everyday American life. Myth-breaking next. We'll tackle one of the biggest myths that power always wins. Many people assume authority figures automatically command the final word. But Crockett shattered that belief, and we'll explore how Solution 1. Then we'll share Crockett's first hidden strategy, the art of staying cold and calm. We'll break down exactly how this works and how you can apply it, whether you're in a workplace meeting, a classroom, or even a family discussion. Solution 2. From there, we'll uncover a deeper layer, the emotional side of comebacks. Crockett's delivery wasn't just about tone, it was about conviction and storytelling. We'll show how you can use the same approach to win respect and keep control of the moment. Golden nugget. Finally, we will reveal the ultimate takeaway, the secret behind Crockett's ability to hold her ground. Hint is not about clever words, it's about identity, values, and conviction. That is the lesson that transcends politics and touches every American life. Summary and CTA. At the end, we'll recap everything, tie it together, and challenge you to step into your own moments of power with Crockett's strategy in mind. Plus, we'll invite you to join the conversation, because this isn't just about watching it, about practicing it yourself. You don't have to be in Congress to experience what Crockett faced. Every American has a moment where they feel challenged by authority. For a student, it's being questioned by a teacher in front of the class. For an employee, it's being criticized by a boss in a team meeting. For parents, it is standing up to administrators when fighting for their kids. For citizens, it is speaking up at a local town hall. Crockett's comeback gives us a roadmap for those situations. It is not about disrespecting authority. It is about demanding respect for yourself. So as we move forward into the breakdown, remember this isn't just about Barrett and Crockett. It's about you. How do you hold your ground when power challenges you? How do you keep your composure when the stakes are high? How do you make sure your voice doesn't just get heard but respected? Those are the questions we're going to answer. So buckle up, because the shocking comeback from Jasmine Crockett isn't just a viral moment. It is a guide for every American on how to face authority without fear. Here's the truth. When most people are confronted by authority, they make the same mistake. They shrink. Instead of standing firm, they second-guess themselves. Instead of delivering their message with clarity, they stumble over words, try to over-explore, or apologize unnecessarily. And that's exactly what most people expected Jasmine Crockett to do when Justice Amy Coney Barrett went on the attack. After all, Barrett carries one of the heaviest titles in the land, Supreme Court Justice. But Crockett didn't shrink. She did the opposite. And that's why her comeback hit like a thunderclap. Why do people shrink in these moments? Because authority has a psychological weight. In school, it is the teacher who calls you out in front of the class. At work, it is the manager questioning your report in front of your team. At home, it is a parent or elder shutting down your perspective because they know better. The natural reaction: your heart races, your palms sweat, your voice trembles, and before you know it, you're either rambling, apologizing, or staying silent. Not because you are wrong, but because you re-intimidated. That's the mistake. Not the silence itself, but the surrender of presence. Let's ground this in everyday life. Imagine you are at your job. You've worked for weeks on a presentation, pulling late nights, double-checking every number. Finally, it's time to present to senior leadership. You're halfway through when your boss interrupts with a pointed question. Are you sure this data is correct? Because it looks weak. The room goes silent. Every eye turns to you. Most people in that moment panic. They rush to justify themselves, stumble over an answer, or quietly agree to double-check, even though they know their data is solid. That's the mistake, letting authority take control of the narrative instead of standing firmly in your work. Now compare that to Crockett's situation. When Barrett came at her, Crockett could have done what most of us do. Defer, soften, or backpedal, but she didn't. She held her ground and responded with a comeback so steady it flipped the dynamic. Have you ever been in that position? Have you ever had a boss, teacher, or authority figure challenge you in front of others and you froze up or wished later that you'd have spoken differently? Most Americans know that feeling. That's why Crockett's moment resonates so deeply. It wasn't just politics. It was representation for everyone who's ever wished they could go back in time and deliver the perfect response. Here is something most people don't know. Psychologists have studied the way humans react to authority for decades. In one famous experiment, ordinary people followed instructions from authority figures to shocking extremes, even when they felt uncomfortable doing so. Why? Because authority carries weight, and most of us are conditioned to obey. But studies also show that when just one person dares to push back confidently, others suddenly find their courage too. That's what Crockett did. She didn't just protect herself. She set an example. Her response gave others permission to say, "Wait a second, maybe authority doesn't always have the final word." This mistake, shrinking in the face of authority, has consequences beyond personal pride. In the workplace, it means brilliant ideas get lost because people don't feel safe defending them. In schools, students stay quiet instead of asking the hard questions that could spark learning. In communities, citizens feel silenced at town halls, allowing decisions to be made without their input. When authority goes unchallenged, imbalance grows. And when everyday Americans feel like their voices don't matter, democracy itself suffers. That's why Crockett's comeback to Barrett wasn't just a headline. It was a reminder that silence is a choice, and presence is power. So what did Crockett do differently? She refused to play into the mistake of shrinking. She didn't speed up. She didn't ramble, and she didn't over-apologize. She delivered a cold, steady response that reminded Barrett and everyone watching that power is not the same thing as control, and that as the first step toward solving this problem in our own lives. We've identified the first big mistake, shrinking under authority. Now we need to bust the myth that causes it the belief that power always wins. In the next section, we'll break down why that myth is false, how Crockett shattered it in real time, and what it means for every American facing their own moments of pressure. Because once you stop believing authority is automatically right, you start realizing the power of your own voice. Here's the myth most Americans believe, and it's one that keeps us silent in the face of authority. Power always wins. From classrooms to courtrooms, we are conditioned to believe that those with higher titles, more years of experience, or positions of influence will always dominate the conversation. But this is simply not true, and Jasmine Crockett proved it, when she stood toe-to-toe with Justice Barrett and delivered a comeback so sharp it turned the entire exchange upside down. Authority doesn't always win. Clarity and conviction do. Why the myth exists. Let's unpack why so many people believe this myth. From childhood, we retaught to respect authority. Parents, teachers, coaches. Respect is important, but somewhere along the way, many confuse respect with silence. If a teacher corrects you, don't push back. If your boss criticizes you, swallow your words. If someone older speaks, don't interrupt. These lessons, drilled into us for years, create a subconscious belief that power is always right and challenging, it is dangerous, and while respect is valuable, silence in the face of unfairness isn't to respect it as surrender. That is what made Crockett's response so stunning. She refused to accept the myth. When Barrett came at her, the expectation was that Crockett would soften her words, defer to the justice's authority, or backtrack. Instead, she stayed steady, cold, and unapologetic. She didn't disrespect the justice, but she didn't yield either. And in that moment, millions of Americans watching saw the myth crumble. Power doesn't always control the outcome. Sometimes conviction does. Let us take this out of the courtroom and into everyday American life. Imagine you're in a staff meeting. Your boss, who's been with the company for 20 years, dismisses your idea as unrealistic. Everyone else stays quiet, nodding along. Here is the myth at work. The assumption that your boss is automatically right because of their position. But what if you calmly responded with, "I hear your concern, but here." Why this approach could save us time and money, and here is the data to back it up. Suddenly you've challenged the myth. Not with disrespect, but with calm conviction, and the room shifts because people realize power doesn't equal perfection. That's what Crockett did, and it's what each of us can do in our own lives. So let me ask you, have you ever held back your voice because you assumed the authority in the room must be right? Maybe it was at work, maybe in school, maybe in your own family. If so, you've lived under the shadow of this myth. The good news: Crockett's example proves it doesn't have to be that way. Here is a surprising fact in surveys of workplace dynamics. Nearly 70% of employees admit they've stayed silent in meetings even when they had valuable input, simply because someone in power spoke first. Think about that. The myth of authority silences brilliant ideas before they were even heard. Now flip it. Imagine if those 70% spoke with Crockett's clarity. Imagine the innovation, the creativity, the solutions that could emerge. That's why busting this myth matters not just for Congress, but for every classroom, office, and community in America. Once you stop believing that authority always wins, a transformation happens. You start voicing your ideas in meetings. You push back respectfully when you know something's off. You advocate for yourself in schools, workplaces, and communities. You realize that power isn't a guarantee of truth. And you understand that presence, clarity, and conviction can shift the balance in any room. That's what Crockett modeled, and that's what every American can carry forward. So now that we've shattered the myth, if authority doesn't always control the room, what's the alternative? If you can't rely on authority alone, what should you rely on? That's where we turn to the first major solution, the art of staying cold and calm under pressure. In the next section, we'll break down exactly how Crockett used this strategy and how you can apply it to your own life, whether you are in the workplace, at school, or at home. Because once you learn to stay cold under fire, authority loses its grip. So far, we've uncovered the problem. Most people shrink under authority. We've busted the myth. Power doesn't always win. Now it's time for the first solution, and it's the one Jasmine Crockett modeled so perfectly in her exchange with Justice Barrett. Stay cold and calm under pressure. Sounds simple, right? But in the heat of the moment, it's one of the hardest things to do. Why staying cold works. When authority challenges you, the room is already stacked against you. People expect you to panic, stumble, or retreat. By staying cold, steady, tone, controlled body language, unhurried words, you flip the script. Here is why it works. It signals confidence. People trust calm voices more than frantic ones. It unsettles authority. When someone expects you to crack, but you don't, the power dynamic shifts. It buys you time. Calm delivery slows the moment down, giving you space to think clearly. That's what Crockett did. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't fumble, and she didn't rush. Her cold delivery made Barrett's attack look weaker, not stronger. Let's apply this to everyday American life at work. You are in a team meeting and your boss questions your numbers. Instead of apologizing or panicking, you take a breath, look them in the eye, and say calmly, "I appreciate the question. Let me walk you through the process so you can see why I am confident in this data." Cold, calm, clear at school. A professor challenges your essay point in class. Instead of getting defensive, you calmly respond, "That is a fair perspective. Here is why I approach it this way, and here's the evidence I found to support it." No panic. Just composure. This doesn't just protect your dignity. It often wins you respect. There is science behind this too. Research in communication shows that people perceive calm speakers as more credible even if the content of their words is identical to someone speaking nervously. Why? Because calmness is associated with control, and in high-pressure moments, control is power. Crockett's cold tone wasn't tea, just style. It was strategy one that made Barrett's attack look like noise and her response look like truth. So let me ask you, how do you usually respond when someone in authority challenges you? Do you stay calm or do nerves take over? Be honest, because recognizing your default reaction is the first step to changing it. Let's get practical. How can you train yourself to stay cold under pressure? Pause before you speak. A 2-second pause feels natural to others, but gives you time to think. Control your breathing. Slow breaths. Calm your nervous system. Steadying your voice. Lower your tone. Speaking slightly slower and deeper signals confidence, even if you don't feel it. Eye contact. Look at the person challenging you, not aggressively but firmly. Less is more. Keep responses short and clear. Over-explaining looks like panic. These aren't tricks, they retools, and the more you practice, the more natural they become. Here's a surprising fact. Some of the most famous courtroom lawyers in American history trained themselves to slow down their speech when challenged. Why? Because juries instinctively trust people who don't rush. The same principle applies in your life. Speed looks like panic. Calm looks like control. That's the hidden power Crockett used in her comeback. How this applies beyond politics. Staying cold isn't just for Congress or courtrooms. In relationships, it keeps arguments from spiraling out of control. In parenting, it teaches kids how to handle conflict with maturity. In customer service jobs, it turns angry customers into cooperative ones. In activism or community work, it shows strength without aggression. Every American has moments where calmness under fire can change the outcome. Now, staying cold and calm is the foundation, but it's not the full picture. Because calmness alone isn't enough, you need to pair it with something deeper. The ability to deliver your message with emotional conviction that sticks. That's what we'll uncover next. Solution 2. She combined calmness with emotional storytelling. That's Solution 2. Use your story to connect, cut through, and win the room. Why emotional storytelling works. Facts alone rarely win arguments. Even in politics, even in law, and especially in daily life, people remember how you made them feel more than the details you gave them. When Crockett responded to Barrett, she didn't just rebut the attack. She grounded her words in personal conviction and relatable emotion, the kind that makes ordinary people nod along and think, yes, that's exactly right. She didn't get lost in legal jargon or political noise. She spoke in a way that hit people in the gut, and that is why her comeback went viral. Everyday example: relationships. Imagine you're in an argument with your partner. They accuse you of not caring about their stress. If you only reply with cold facts, I cooked dinner 3 times this week. I paid the bills. I helped with chores. You are not really addressing the heart of the issue. But if you respond with calmness and emotion, I hear you. I've been trying to take things off your plate because I care. I know it. It's been heavy, and I don't want you to feel alone. You are telling a story that conveys care, connection, and conviction. That's how you win, not just the argument, but the person. Crockett did exactly this. Her words weren't tea, just a defense. They were a statement of values, of lived experience, of why she stood where she stood. That see what stunned people. Not just that she was calm, but that she was clear about who she was and what she represented. Barrett's attack was legalistic. Crockett's comeback was human. And when the human voice enters the room, the technical often fades into the background. Practical hack. How to tell a powerful story under pressure. Anchor in personal experience. Don't just argue theory. Share a moment. A lived truth. Something you've felt. Use I statements. I've seen this, I believe this, I experienced this. These disarm opponents because they can deny your truth. Keep it tight under pressure. Short stories win. A sentence or two can change the room. Connect to universal values. Justice, fairness, family, opportunity. These resonate no matter the setting. End with conviction. Your story should close with a point so sharp it sticks in people's memory. Now let me ask you, if you were challenged in front of a crowd, what story would you lean on to ground yourself? Something from your childhood, your career, your family. Think about it, because having one or two go-to stories ready can be the difference between fumbling and shining when authority presses you. Let me share a case study that mirrors Crockett's approach. A young woman, first in her family to graduate college, faced a professor who doubted her thesis in front of a packed class. Instead of panicking, she calmly said, "Professor, I respect your point, but I grew up in a neighborhood where this issue wasn't just theory. It was survival, and my research reflects that reality." Silence, then applause from classmates. Why? Because she used solution 2. She brought in her lived story with conviction. Just like Crockett, she turned doubt into respect. Here's something most people don't realize. Neuroscientists have found that stories activate not just the language centers of the brain, but also the sensory and emotional regions. That means when you tell a story, people's brains light up as if they are experiencing it themselves. Facts alone hit only one part of the brain. Stories they immerse. That's why Crockett. T.S. comeback felt bigger than politics. She told a human story and millions felt it with her. Solution 2 isn't just a political trick. It's a life skill. At work, share a story of how you solved a tough problem instead of just listing skills. That is how you win promotions. At school, when defending a project, ground it in real-world impact, not just numbers. That's how you connect with teachers and peers in relationships. Use short, real-life stories to show love, care, or lessons learned. That's how you deepen trust in community. Anchor your voice in lived experience when speaking up. That's how you gain influence. Stories humanize. And in a world where authority often feels distant and cold, the human voice always resonates. Now calm composure. Solution 1 and emotional storytelling. Solution 2 are a powerful combo. But Crockett's shocking comeback had one final element. The golden nugget. The ultimate secret that turned her words into a cultural moment. What is it? It's not just what she said, and not even how she said it. It's something deeper. The strategy she used to make sure her words outlived the moment, spreading across the country like wildfire. We've talked about calmness. We've talked about storytelling. But here's the golden nugget, the ultimate secret behind Jasmine Crockett's shocking comeback to Justice Barrett. She spoke not just to the person in front of her, but to the audience beyond the room. That's the difference between a sharp reply and a lasting cultural moment. Why this matters? Most people, when challenged, focus only on the opponent. They zero in on winning that exchange. But Crockett didn't just aim her words at Barrett. She aimed them at the millions of Americans watching, at everyday people who wanted to see someone stand tall, speak truth, and hold their own. Her strategy wasn't about silencing a justice. It was about empowering an audience. That's why her words spread far beyond the courtroom or chamber. They lived on in clips, headlines, and conversations across the nation. Think about it in your own life. When you stand up to a boss, it's sequels. Not just about them, it's about your co-workers who are watching. When you speak in class, it is not just about your professor, it's about the peers who will remember how you carried yourself. When you argue in a community meeting, it's not just about the official, it's about your neighbors who now see you as a leader. The true audience is bigger than the person you're facing. And if you remember that you gain an edge, most people overlook the power of speaking beyond the room. Here's the secret. Crockett used her words were layered. Surface, layer. A direct response to Barrett. Calm, sharp, undeniable. Deeper layer. A message of strength and resilience that everyday Americans could connect with. Lasting layer. A soundbite built to outlive the moment. Short, clear, and powerful enough to spread. That's why people are still talking about it. She didn't just win the room, she won the replay. The emotional punch. Crockett's comeback wasn't just about defending herself. It was about defending the idea that no one, not even a Supreme Court justice, is above accountability. That message resonated emotionally. It told Americans, You don't have to back down. You don't have to cower before power. Your voice matters even when the odds look stacked. That is why her words became more than a clapback. They became a rallying cry. And here, S, where the golden nugget applies to you, every time you face pressure at work, at school, in your community. Remember this. You are not just speaking to one person. You are speaking to the audience beyond the room. Your co-workers, your peers, your family, even your future self. Carry yourself in a way that tells a bigger story. Deliver your words so they echo beyond the moment that S, how you transform confrontation into legacy. So what have we learned? Solution 1. Stay cold and calm under pressure. Solution 2. Pair calmness with emotional storytelling. Golden nugget. Speak beyond the moment to the larger audience. It's waiting to be moved, but we are not done yet. Now it's time to tie everything together, recap the key lessons, and leave you with a motivational call to action that will help you use these strategies in your own life. Let's bring this full circle. We started with a shocking moment. Justice Barrett attacking Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and Crockett firing back with a comeback so cold and sharp that it left the room stunned. From there, we broke down the lessons hidden in that exchange problem. Most people fold under authority, letting pressure silence their voice. Myth. Busted power doesn't always win. The underdog can turn the tables. Solution 1. Stay cold and calm under pressure. Your composure signals strength. Solution 2. Pair that calmness with emotional storytelling. Facts fade, but stories stick. Golden nuggets speak. Not just to your opponent, but to the audience beyond the room. That is how words outlive the moment. These aren't just political strategies. They re-life strategies, and they re-available to you right now in every high-pressure moment you face. Think about it. If Crockett can stand toe-to-toe with a Supreme Court justice and not back down, what could you do in your own life if you applied these same strategies? What if instead of shrinking under criticism, you stayed calm and collected? What if instead of rattling off facts, you told a story that people actually felt? What if instead of arguing only for the room, you spoke in a way that echoed far beyond it? That's not just politics. That is power. That is presence. That is influence. And it's yours to claim. The truth is, authority will always exist. Challenges will always come. But how you carry yourself in those moments, that is, where the real game is won. So the next time you under fire, remember Crockett's example. Stay cold, share your story, and aim your words at the bigger audience. That's how you shift the balance of power. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been challenged by, say, only one in authority, a boss, a teacher, or even a family elder, and found yourself either standing tall or shrinking back? What happened? Drop your story in the comments, because your voice matters here. And if this breakdown of Jasmine Crockett's shocking comeback inspired you, do me a favor. Hit that like button so more people can discover it. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the powerful moments shaping our country. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Crockett or Barrett. It's about all of us learning how to speak up, stand strong, and refuse to let authority silence our truth. Your words matter. Your presence matters. And when you deliver your comeback with calmness, story, and purpose, you can stun any room just like Jasmine Crockett did.